Greetings, ladies and gentlefish. Now, some of you may remember, if you cast your minds back to last week, that I put up a video with a couple of mid-tier Japanese heavy tanks. We had the OI Experimental at tier 5, and we had the OI at tier 6. Both of which were top tier in their games, and both of which completely wrecked face. I thought we'd stick with the Japanese theme, and in this video we're going to be looking at another mid-tier Japanese tank, but this time we are looking at the Japanese tier 6 premium heavy tank, called Heavy Tank number 6, appropriately enough. Now what this actually is basically a Japanese version of the Tiger. Now, it is played for us today by your neighbour Mr. Wang, which is an absolutely amazing name. I'm just going to call him Mr. Wang, or possibly Wang for short. Who knows, maybe even Wangy. He is going to fire a lot of APCR ammunition in this game. Why? Well, if you have a look at this, this is a tier 8 game. And this is basically the historical quote-unquote Tiger with the L56 88mm gun, which in the game gets 132mm of average penetration and fairly uninspiring accuracy. And 132mm of penetration in a tier 8 game is kind of painful if you are a heavy tank. If he loads APCR, that penetration jumps up to 171. Now, that's still not auto-penetration territory by any stretch of the imagination. To give you a sense of perspective, that's the same penetration the TOG-2 gets with its regular ammunition, and that gets limited matchmaking so that it never sees tier 8 games. So, although Mr. Wang here is going to fire an awful lot of APCR, do bear in mind, he is bottom tier in this game. And the penetration on this gun is terrible. Now, I will be honest, this tank makes me laugh. Because for years, for as long as I can remember in this game, we have had people complaining that the Tiger, the German tank, is at tier 7. And we have had people saying that, oh my god, this is ridiculous, the Tiger should be at tier 6 and given the historical 88mm gun, the L56. And that's what this tank is. This might be Japanese, but it's basically a historical Tiger. It's a Tiger with the L56 88mm gun at tier 6. And when people were talking about this, I said, well, basically what you're saying is that you want to play the VK3601H, which is the German tier 6 heavy tank, with the 88mm gun. That's basically a historical Tiger. You can do that if you want. Go and do it. I did it. I quite liked the 88mm gun on the tank when I played it. When I played the 3601H. And then this tank was announced, and people were going, yay, historical Tiger at tier 6. And a couple of us were going, well, it's basically the 3601H with the 88mm gun. And very few people use the 88 on that tank. They use the Konish or Waffe gun or whatever it's called, that's 75mm. And then this tank was released, and a bunch of people bought it. And then they started complaining on all the forums. Oh my god, the penetration's rubbish, the gun sucks, it's got 132mm of penetration, the armor isn't very good, blah 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 blah. And some of us are sitting there going, yeah, like we said, it's a VK3601H with the short 88mm gun. This was obvious to anyone with 3 brain cells to rub together. I mean, what? Of course that's what it is. That's what it was always going to be. And, so it just makes me giggle that people complain that the Tiger's at tier 7 and said we should have the Tiger at tier 6. And then when the Tiger did come at tier 6, people complained about it. It's like, people... yeah. And this is why I, personally, have absolutely no problem, or very little problem, with the fact that often wargaming pay only a very limited amount of attention to what its player base wants, because the player base don't know what they want. The player base want to win 100% of their matches. That's what the player base want. And it's just... sometimes people are idiots, is what I'm getting at. Anyway, I've been... as Loki just said, sometimes? I've been rambling on, while Mr. Wang here has been desperately trying to, well, do some damage to the enemy team, and he's had rather mixed success. He's bounced on a whole variety of different targets, even though he's firing APCR. Gold ammo, OP, please nerf. And he's taken a couple of hits so far, but he hasn't actually taken that much damage. Now the Tiger, sorry, Heavy Tank number 6, does carry a very healthy supply of ammunition, which means you can take a lot of APCR. I mean, he had like 30 rounds, 35, 40 rounds or something of APCR, plus 50 rounds of armor piercing and 4 HE. You know, that's a lot of ammo. Now, this game really doesn't look like it's going very well. There is Mr. Wang in his Tier 6, a T-25 AT and a Tiger II, versus a shed ton of bad guys. I mean, Mr. Wang has done some damage so far, but he hasn't got any kills, and this game is looking really dodgy. Now, the T-25 AT nails that IS, which is good. Mr. Wang puts this AMX on a one-shot, and you could say, oh, Mr. Wang doesn't need to fire APCR here. No, he doesn't, but well, it's what he's got loaded, and I don't think he's in the mood to really faff around with ammo types. Sees a Jagdpanther, kills a Jagdpanther. There's kill number 1. There are only 2 of them left now, Mr. Wang and the Tiger II. Auto-aims at the CDC, takes a hit from the CDC, but nails him in the end. T-25 AT now. Kill number 3. Now, they've managed to polish off a bunch of those snapshot skills. Wasn't that unlikely? Oh, Lux is peppering the front of his tank. They've managed to kill a bunch of the guys who are on low health on the enemy team. And so now it's a Super Pershing, 3 artillery pieces, and a Lux versus this Tiger II versus Mr. Wang. Now, the Super Pershing there plays like an utter plonker and just gives Mr. Wang an easy shot into his side armor. If the Super Pershing was front on to Mr. Wang here, yes, it would have been possible for Mr. Wang to penetrate him, but it would have been very, very difficult. And he could have bullied the hell out of Mr. Wang, and Mr. Wang is a 2-shot for the 90mm gun on the Super Pershing. As it is, the Super Pershing plays incredibly poorly, gives Mr. Wang a shot into his side, and his little adventure ends. And that means that Mr. Wang is now outnumbered 1 versus 4. However, 3 of those are artillery, and 1 of them is a Tier 4 light tank. Mr. Wang nails that Lux. FV goes off early and manages to miss his shot. And now the threat here is not the FV-207, who will still be reloading, of course. It's the other 2 artillery pieces who may be taking a bead on Mr. Wang's position as he tries to engage this FV. So, Mr. Wang loses his ammo rack and his track there, and decides, quite sensibly actually, to put his track back on, because he just got hit by 1 artillery piece. If the other guy was aiming there as well... Oh, that was close. If the other guy was aiming there as well, they could finish off Mr. Wang. The damaged ammo rack is annoying, but it's not the end of the world. Especially in this situation when you're facing off against artillery. So, there's a GW Panther on 2 kills, and an SU-5, who's not on any kills, but he was platooned up with the Lux and the ARL-44. And when Mr. Wang played this, of course, this is a patch 9.10 game. And so the Japanese hadn't been out for that long. And someone asks, Mr. Wang, is that Chinese? And he says yes, but the tank is Japanese, as the Lux points out. I'm just rambling here. He does spot the GW Panther and actually manages to get a really nice blind kill on the guy. Absolutely fantastic. Very well done. Lovely blind shot there. And that just leaves the SU-5. Now I'm going to speed this along a little bit. As Mr. Wang goes looking for that artillery piece. Now the SU-5 is not the fastest machine in the world. It has an alright gun, and it's got a very narrow gun traverse. And the thing is, Mines is not a huge map, but Mr. Wang is kind of running out of time a little bit here. There's less than 4 minutes left on the clock, and if Mr. Wang spends this whole game driving around the map looking for that artillery piece, this game could very well end in a draw. So instead, Mr. Wang decides to sit in the base and cap this game out. And I'm just going to speed this along a little bit. Now he's trying to keep an eye out for likely approach routes of that SU-5, but it seems that the SU-5 is content with just blind firing the base, which is very unlikely to work, and is a decision that more often than not, when artillery decide to just blind fire the base rather than actually go for the damage and the kill on the dude who's capping, more often than not it results in the game ending in a defeat for that artilleryman. Has he got time for one more blind shot? Can he reset Mr. Wang? In fact, if he hits Mr. Wang, he'll probably kill him. No! There we go. Mr. Wang secures the game with a nice invader medal there. So we saw Mr. Wang shoot a lot of guys, and we saw him shoot a large amount of APCR, so don't expect this to be a massively profitable match, but how well did he actually do? He's got 7 kills, so it's looking good, but how good? Well, let's go and have a look at the post-battle results. So in the end, that ended up being enough for Mr. Wang to get, and this might take a while, Ace Tanker, Hand of God, Spotter, Bruiser, Duelist, Fire for Effect, Shellproof, Invader, Top Gun, Steel Wall, and a Kolobanov's medal for being outnumbered 5 versus 1 at the end and still emerging victorious. That is a very nice slew of medals, especially considering Mr. Wang was bottom tier there. 3,218 damage done, 7 kills, 1,855 base experience. If you look at the rest of his team, the T-34, the Tiger II and the AMX all put in, you know, a fairly respectable amount of damage for tier 8 tanks. You know, they all put in around the 2,000 mark, which is perfectly respectable. But nowhere close to Mr. Wang. And Mr. Wang got more than twice the base XP of anyone else on his team. Commiserations to the enemy Super Pershing. 3,391 damage, 5 kills, or 1,267 XP. That, of course, is with Courageous Resistance, because he picked up Fire for Effect, Bruiser, Fighter, Duelist, and that High Caliber medal, which gave him the Courageous Resistance, as he picked up slightly more damage than did Mr. Wang. But he was top tier, and he could have won this game if he hadn't given Mr. Wang an easy shot into his side. He knew Mr. Wang was there. Mr. Wang had already taken a shot at the guy's weak turret roof. So Mr. Wang clearly knows his weak spots, but that guy just gave him his side profile and gave Mr. Wang the kill. What you gonna do? SU5 down here right at the end managed just shy of 1,000 damage, which is not bad considering his tier. But if I were him, I'd have gone for the base reset in person. Usually when you just blind fire the enemy base in that sort of situation, you're basically giving the game away. 29 shots fired, 20 hits, 18 penetrations for that damage count. Most of that damage was from relatively close range. And because that Lux was spamming Mr. Wang with his autocannon, Mr. Wang took 21 hits, of which only 4 penetrated. Now, please do not take away from that means once you take the Tiger's armor profile and shove it down to tier 6, its armor is amazing. It's not. He only got that many shots bounced because of that Lux's autocannon bouncing off his frontal armor. 2 hits received as a result of splash damage, just over 1,000 damage blocked with his armor. 5 enemy vehicles spotted, 9 damage, 7 destroyed, 1,035 assistance damage, 100 base capture points for that invader medal, and he travelled 2.6 kilometers. However, if you look at the profitability of that match, Mr. Wang fired nothing but APCR, and 29 rounds of APCR are damned expensive. He had ammunition costs of 92,800 credits. So, with a premium account, despite a revenue of 81,500 credits, he still lost 16,500. With a standard account, that would have been almost 44,000 credits down the drain. But an excellent result, so make of that what you will. Now, a lot of the shots Mr. Wang took, I think he could have achieved with armor-piercing ammo, but I understand why he didn't want to bother with that. Experience, there was a times 3 XP event on at the time, and Mr. Wang runs a premium account, so that was 9,184 experience plus 414 free XP. A very nice game, however you look at it. And that was the completely other end of the spectrum. The heavy tank number 6 is not known as a particularly good tier 6 heavy tank, whereas the OI has a reputation in most people's eyes for being horrendously overpowered. So I thought it was interesting to take a look at the other tier 6 Japanese heavy tank. And this is a machine that, of course, again, I haven't shown on my channel at all. And at the time of recording this, actually, on the EU servers, at the weekend, this machine was actually on discount. And I picked it up with some gold that I already had lying around. I haven't injected any more money into the game. It's just took advantage of an opportunity that I had. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that game. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao ciao.